and welcome back to my channel. Unless you're new here, and then it's just welcome. My name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and my favorite music, mostly metal. And yes, we are finishing up the I Know What You Did Last Summer trilogy with I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer. Okay. Now, I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer was released in 2006. It was directed by Sylvain. It was written by Lois Duncan. You know, she was a writer on the first two as well. And Michael D. Weiss. It stars Brooke Nevin, David Packard, Paetkau. Yeah, I always gotta do that. David Packard, Torrey DeVitto, and Seth Packard. Now, big surprise, I love this fucking movie. I do love this movie. And let's talk about it. So, this may sound facetious, but if you try to find the good things about yourself or the things that you really like about yourself, one of the things that I like most about myself is that despite me being a film collector and a cinephile since I was about 15, I have never become jaded, and I have never become prejudgmental, and I still love cinema. I still love movies as much as I did when I first fell in love with movies, especially horror movies. So I still love movies like this, and I have this uncanny ability to have not allowed myself to cross the line of thinking myself or calling myself or viewing a film through the eyes of a fucking critic. I hate that word. I hate those people. Mainly because they always talk as though they are telling you your opinion, not theirs. They're telling you your opinion. Critics seem to present it in a way of, this is the film. I am the Lord God Master of what is good and great in film, and I judge this a piece of shit. To do any different means you are obviously not. You're lowbrow or something, but you just don't know the truth. They just always have this smug air about them, and I absolutely hate them. And that's one of the things that I am most proud of about myself, is that I still love movies. And I don't care what the score is on this. I don't care what, a bunch of people going, "Oh, I hated the third one," or "I didn't like the second and third one." Whatever. It doesn't matter to me. I'm going to watch it and decide for myself, and that's exactly what I did. And because when I go into these movies, pretty much any movie I watch, I don't prejudge. I don't predetermine. Oh, wow, The Heretic is the worst sequel ever made. And I'm like, really? Well, let me look and see. Yeah, it was. So sometimes I'll agree with the mob crowd, but then sometimes I don't. And it's all because I love movies. I love horror. And when I go into a horror movie, I judge it completely and totally on its own standards. And I really like that about myself. And I fucking love this movie. Now, this movie takes place 10 years after the first two. It wasn't released 10 years. Well, yeah, it kind of was, wasn't it? 6. No. 9 years after the first one? 2006, 1997. Yeah. So, but it takes place 10 years after the first two. It is a completely separate movie. It is a standalone movie. It really has nothing to do with the first two, except at the very end. Is the only time that it like has anything to do with the first two, and the first two are mentioned in this movie. So it opens, and I immediately like was impressed by this movie because I happen to be a fan of what's known as flash edits. It's a cinema style. Friend Request used it a lot. Quarantine used it a lot. Even though Quarantine was a found footage, Friend Request is kind of a half and half found footage. This is not found footage in any way. But there is a style of cinematography that they use called flash edits, like for flashbacks, like flashes on the screen of images and scenes, and like a person having a nightmare or something. And this movie opens with this really cool introduction in the intro credits, and it's a bunch of flash edits, and I really like that style of filmmaking, provided it isn't overused, and sometimes I find it underused, but this movie really did it perfectly. So I love flash edits, so I was immediately like, oh, I like this, I like this intro. We realize that we are at a local carnival, and it's about a week or so before, well, yeah, it's July the 4th. So they're at the July 4th carnival, and they're on like this Ferris wheel ride, but it's not just two people, it's like a whole basket, So we are introduced to our main characters, which are Amber and Zoe and Colby and Lance, and Roger. Lance is down there, but so Amber's like telling this little tale, this urban legend of the fisherman, and they get off the ride. We are then introduced, like I said, to Lance. We are also introduced to PJ. PJ is the sheriff's son who is about to head off to the military. So it's set up like the first movie in that you have a bunch of graduated people who are going to now be going off to do whatever they're going to do. So PJ shows up, and he's the sheriff's son. There's some pretty, character development right there as they all talk and carry on. When all of a sudden, behind one of them, we see the shadow, the figure of the fisherman, right? And he rips this big curtain type thing, and he comes out and he starts swinging at everybody, and he puts a big gash down Colby's arm, and everybody starts screaming and running, and the sheriff comes running, and PJ, he jumps on his skateboard and he takes off, and Hook is after him, the fisherman. Hook is after him. He ends up like going up onto the roof, and the sheriffs run up there to save him, and Hook's coming at him, like, I'm going to get you. About the time that the sheriff and the deputy get up there, he's gone, and PJ, like, jumps off the roof with his skateboard to slide down this side. And that's when you realize that, the others, like, run into the parking lot, Amber and Zoe and Colby and all of them. They run into the parking lot, and out from beside another car comes Hook. And instead of attacking them, though, they're all like, and then they start laughing. And he, like, takes off the gear and it's Roger. So this was a hoax. So they're like laughing and carrying on about how they scared the shit out of everybody. Here, put it away quickly, because like everybody will be looking for this thing, for this killer. And then they walk back over to the carnival because they're like hearing like screams and stuff. So they walk back over into the carnival area, and they walk up, and PJ, when he jumped off that roof to slide down the side, he had actually fallen on a tractor. Now, the big smokestack that sticks up from a tractor? I guess it's the muffler, but it sticks up in the front. Well, PJ had been impaled right through the chest on that, so he's dead. Really, really dead. And his father is the sheriff standing there screaming. So they fucked up, like, big time. They, so the group, they run out into the woods. They take the hook and the costume, and they sort of the reminiscent of the wreck scene where they hit the boy in the first one, or thought they hit the boy. They sit around talking about what the fuck, this will destroy our lives if that's the sheriff's son. So we're all fucked like 3 ways from Sunday if they find out that this was it. So after this discussion, and of course you have, who is it, just Amber? I think it was, well no, it was, and this time it was Amber and Roger. They're the ones who want to tell the sheriff, tell the truth. But of course everybody else is like, no. So they then agree, like in the first movie, they agree that, okay, we won't tell. And to make it, they're like, yeah, but Colby, that was a fake cut. So like he even like rips his arm to make it realistic. So they're just going to let the town believe that some psycho jumped out and tried to attack everybody, and it got PJ killed. So they choose not to tell. We flash forward again, like the first movie, to a year later. Amber is at PJ's grave. She's come back, from her college. And they're going out to a barn party where we see Lance. We're introduced to Lance. Now Colby, he's supposed to be off some. I guess he's sort of like the Ryan Felipe character in this movie. He was a rich dumbass who kind of like petered out, and he's back. She didn't even know it, and they're supposed to be dating, and she didn't even know he had come back, and there he is. So they all meet up at the barn party, where they pretty much break up. Her and Colby break up. We get introduced to, I can't never say his damn name. Halfman, something like that. Deputy Halfman. But anyway, he speaks to her and offers her a shoulder because he can tell she's upset later that night on the bridge. Where she's like, oh, never mind, it's just a girl thing, and he's like, well, if you ever need to talk, I'm here, and stuff like that. So she goes on home, has her nightmares, and then this is where I'm really liking the movie so far. I'm really invested in the characters, and she walks into her bedroom and there's a note with her name on it, Amber, and I'm like, no, don't do that, don't do that. We've had a flying critter problem before. So it's like, I'm like, don't do that. Because you've been similar, but different, So she walks up to it and she picks up the letter, and I'm like, please don't make it say that, because that would be like a mark against the movie. And she opens it up, though, and it's money and a letter from her parents, saying enjoy the weekend while we're out of town doing our thing. And I'm like, that's good. That's good. We're keeping it separate. We're keeping it different. And, like, she falls across the bed, like all depressed over this Colby and shit. And, of course, there's pictures of PJ on the wall because she's a photographer. So she's depressed, and then her phone starts buzzing, and she goes over there and lifts it up, and there's like fucking 50 "I know what you did last summer" messages on the phone. And I'm like, that's good. You sort of like updated it. Now it's like on a mobile instead of a letter, and you faked me out with the letter before. I'm liking this, I'm like, that's good. I can handle this as the setup to the story. So she gets that, this stuff, and it scares her, and she's like, what the fuck? She then goes to Zoe, whom she hasn't spoke to much, just like in the first movie. When you're involved in a situation like that, you all kind of like stay away from each other because you don't want to be reminded of what you did or what you were involved in. And they didn't really do anything but cause a hoax that got the boy killed. They didn't really, it got him killed, that's true, but of his own volition. But still, I guess it's enough to have gotten them into trouble. And you make the decisions you make. So she goes to see Zoe at her loft, which also doubles as a practice because she actually is she plays grunge metal, and she's in a grunge metal band. And I fucking love the song they were practicing. So she goes to see her there, and it's like, oh no, you haven't spoke to me in a year. Why speak to me now? But she, they kind of make up, and she shows her the messages. They start like, oh, I didn't tell anybody. She's like, I swear I didn't tell anybody. Why would I? So she didn't do it. So now we're on the 2nd of July, the next day. So Amber and Zoe go to see Roger. Roger works on a gondola, sort of like a ski lift, but at mountains that don't have snow. You're there for hiking and shit as opposed to skiing. So it's like a cute little taxi, enclosed taxi that, anyway, if you don't know what a fucking gondola lift is, go look it up. But he works, repairing the gondolas and stuff. So they go up there to see him. They tell him about everything. I really liked him as a character. I really liked his character. They talk to him. He says that he did not do it either. Why would he? So they go to see him, show him the messages. He says, that all from a prank. How terrible. So he's obviously had a lot of issues. I think he's probably had the most issues of everyone else, guilt-wise, about this incident. So he says that he didn't do it. It's okay. Amber and Zoe go and sit at the school that they used to attend, talk about things, and the sheriff shows up and talks to them. Sheriff Davis. Zoe ends up telling Colby and accuses him of it. He swears it wasn't him. And this all happens while Amber is off hiking. So Amber's off hiking, and she hears noises, and her tires on her bike are slashed. Okay. She then, since she's at the top of the mountain, the closest place to get to is that gondola place. So she goes to see Roger and asks for help. But he's not there, but another guy is. And he's like, okay, well, it's too far down, so you take the gondola down. And a storm is coming as well. So she then gets like attacked by Hook while she's on the gondola. It's like on the roof and stuff. And she ends up even managing, it busts one of the windows, And she manages to get a photo, like, just of, like, a little piece of the hook, that she tries to convince the others of. But she manages to get out. So they're all out, like, wondering if it was Roger, because she learns that he's been really upset about it and self-medicating, and all of this kind of stuff had been going on since the incident. Now, we then see Roger wasted. I mean, he's like fucked up, drunk, on antidepressants and stuff. And he starts hearing shit. He has an absolute really cool kill scene. Roger gets killed in a really, really ugly way. This movie, too, is more kills, more graphic, and bloody than the first movie. So 2 and 3 have both been more gory, more intense than the first movie. So he's got a really good kill scene. Cuts his throat. Yeah, I have to keep up with my notes. So Colby, Zoe, and Amber arrive to confront him because, remember, they started wondering if it was Roger because she was attacked on the gondola. So they show up, and instead they find his dead, nearly decapitated body. And they go into his room. He's been living there, of course, so they go into his room, and it's like they can tell he's been fucked up. But they also find a costume and the hook, and they also find a suicide note. So they kind of say it was him. Not only was it him, but, he wasn't killed out there. He committed suicide. Now, I'm assuming that you'd have to see the movie, but the fight scene between Hook and him involved not a chainsaw, but a skill saw, the round one. And, there was a fight. And so that was laying right by his body. So I'm assuming that people would assume that he cut his own throat with a skill saw. I don't know. But either way, when the deputies and the sheriffs come, they also take the note, and they also deem it a suicide, especially because of the hook. They assume he either cut his own throat with that or the saw. So it all comes out to suicide, Hafner, that's his name. So Deputy Hafner come in, they give him the note, they give their statements, and they leave. Deputy makes another play for Amber. When they get back to the house, all of Amber's pictures, she's a photographer, so she had all of these pictures, and everything has been shredded and all over the floor, all over the house. Every picture in the house has been shredded. So they end up going, but when we got up there, he was dead. He couldn't have done this because it wasn't this way when we left. So now they're like, well, maybe it couldn't have been a suicide. Maybe it wasn't Roger, because whoever did this while we were gone up there to see him. And we know it wasn't him because he's got his head nearly cut off. So there you go. So I'm really digging. I'm having the same vibes, because although I didn't know about Will in the second movie, I didn't know Will was Ben's son. We all still knew that it was Ben who was killing. But Ben's dead. This is all new. So I'm enjoying this movie so much because I'm having the same feelings as I had in the first movie. I don't know what's going on, and I don't know who's doing this because fucking Bill is dead, right? So, and this is a whole different situation anyway. So, I'm having the same enjoyment as I did in the first movie because this new mystery is different enough. And I don't know what's going on. I don't know who did this. I don't know what's going on. So they then go to see Lance and say, well, Lance wasn't part of any of this, but maybe he does know. And he did. Maybe it's him. So they go and see Lance and they discuss last summer, what had happened. And Lance shares the fact that Sheriff David had come to him asking him about what this supposed secret was. Because remember, in his suicide note, he had said, in Roger's suicide note, he had said something about, I can't live with the secret anymore. So, Lance wants to know what's, fucking going on. And the three of them now suspect the sheriff after what Lance said. He's like, I don't know what the fuck y'all are talking about. And they can figure out that he doesn't know the secret, but he knows that there is some secret. So they eliminate him, and now they're like, the sheriff come and ask. So they think it's the sheriff now. So Colby wants to confront the sheriff, but he doesn't really know how. So he ends up leaving a note on the sheriff's car and then watching him from a distance, with a note that was kind of like, I know what the fuck you're doing. You better stop or everyone's going to know. And his reaction was very neutral though, like, what the fuck? So that didn't really prove anything. We see Zoe having a nice nightmare full of those flash edits that I love. She wakes up from the nightmare though, and her guitar is laying on her, and it's all fucked up. The strings are all cut. It's so you're like, well, whatever it was, it certainly wasn't Roger. But then again, we knew that because we saw him get killed. There was never any question about that. So Lance and Amber, they're having a talk, and he ends up admitting to her that he did know about what happened. And he confides in her that PJ told him what they were going to do last year, but he didn't want any part of it. So when it occurred, he knew, and he has known this whole time. But, all he did was advise PJ not to do it. But he doesn't have any, he's not in his feelings about it. He just thought it was a stupid prank and somebody got hurt and killed, and he's just never really thought about it anymore except it being sad. So we then see Colby in the gym, and in the gym pool where he works, as a lifeguard. So he's in the pool, and he actually gets attacked by Hook, and it manages to hook his foot and tear it up real bad, but he gets away. So he's definitely not in the idea that it was Roger and a suicide or anything like that anymore either. So he runs, and now the four sit around trying to figure out once again who this could be, what this could be, when they finally, what they should have done a year ago, Amber finally is like, look, why don't we just all give it up? Why don't we go to Deputy Hafner, who said he would help if we needed any help. Let's go to him and let's just spill our guts and tell them that we suspect the sheriff, his boss. And they go and they get there and they try to do that. But when they get there, he's not alone. He's got a party going on in the back, a card party, like a poker party. And the fucking sheriff is there. So they're like, well, there goes that plan. Because how are they going to tell all of this if they suspect the sheriff in front of the sheriff and all these friends? So it's like, that didn't work. They then come up with another plan. I tell you what, here's how we can get out of this shit. This fucking psycho wants to take us all out. So why don't we just all climb in a car and leave? Let's leave tomorrow before the carnival, before the celebrations, because, well, the carnival's been canceled because of what happened last year, but they are going to put on a celebration show, like a concert. So they decide to do that. We're all going to leave. Now, the next day when they show up to leave, Zoe refuses. She's got bad news for them. Good news for her, bad news for them. And that is that her rock band, who is her metal band, who is going to perform, there is actually going to be an agent in the audience who has heard their demos, who is coming to see them, and he books shows all over the country. So they're like, we can't miss this opportunity. Not only for me, but my bandmates. So they're like, okay, well, fuck. Here's what we can do. We can all stay together and protect each other. We'll go to the show. You'll do your song. And then we'll all climb in the car and leave. And this fucker doesn't get his good time of killing us on the anniversary of PJ's death. So sounds like a good plan. They end up going to the show where we get to see, Zoe perform. And like I said, I love that fucking song she does. Now, Colby, very much like Barry, he's like, I can't sit around here and wait for her to do her damn song. I'm going to go over here to the bar right across the way here and fix me a drink. So he goes over there to do that. Amber and Lance watch Zoe's performance, which was pretty damn kick-ass. And then they're going to... Well, I've lost it. Okay. So now she does the song. I put that I love the song, which I do. Colby's over there fucking around in the bar. Zoe, Amber, and Lance are backstage. And Hook attacks. They run. Pretty nice jump scares. Well-placed jump scares. And he attacks. They run. They're all backstage screaming, running. They're running through this, complex. They do fuck up and manage to get separated, of course. At which point, Zoe, gets separated and is killed. And what's interesting is, like, right as she's dying, because he's, like, up on the balcony, and he's, like, hooked and slashed and cut her all up, and he's holding onto her with the hook, and right as he's gonna let her go, they come around the corner. So actually Amber and Lance witness the last seconds of her life in the murder as she falls down. They run, they go down there to her body, Hook's still after them. They end up hiding. The sheriff, they're like in the sports section, like where all the lockers and stuff are. The sheriff comes in and calls for backup when he sees Zoe's body laying there. And Amber calls Colby on the phone and is like, we've just been attacked. Zoe's dead, you know? And while she's on the phone, you know, the sheriff like hears her and he makes them come out, and they're like scared to death of the sheriff because they thought the sheriff was it, right? When all of a sudden Hook just like brutally guts up the sheriff as well. So she's on the phone with Colby and she's like, the sheriff is dead. Zoe's dead. It's not him, you know? So he's like, oh fuck. Okay, well I'm in the bar. I'll try to get the fuck out. When Hook comes in, and he's still on the phone with her when Hook comes in, and you know she's like, you got to get out before he gets there, and he's like, I think it's a little too late. We got a problem with that. So we have the nice chase scene with Colby through the kitchen and all that kind of stuff, where he gets like, his kill is really good too, because he thinks he's gotten away and he's standing by, you know, the swinging kitchen door thing, the kitchen doors with the little big square in it. Hook gets him right through it. Not only does he get him through it, but he like twists his head up and pulls him through it too. So it's like a really good scene. Amber and Lance, they come to help. When they get there to the room where he's at, they see the blood and everything leading over there to the skip, you know, like where you would throw out stuff. They get over there to the dump, and there it is. His body's laying there. So they end up running out, and when they run out, remember the sheriff had called for help? Here comes Deputy Hafner. So Deputy Hafner gets out and is like, what the fuck is going on? And he shows up outside. They try to tell him, but that's when he says that he already knew. So like for a second, I'm like, God damn, is it him? You know what I mean? Because when they start trying to tell him what was going on, turns out that Roger last week had asked him for help, had came to Deputy Hafner, had told him all about it, had told him that he couldn't live with it anymore. So Hafner's all guilty because he thinks he could have saved Roger from committing suicide, which we all know that didn't happen. But that because he had told Roger, look, don't stir that up again. Keep your mouth shut. What's done is done. All you'll do is end up hurting everybody more. So he's standing there feeling guilty about that situation, thinking that if he'd have listened to Roger, he'd have kept, helped him. So, and that's when Amber was like, so you knew and you kept it a secret? Almost like, you're part of the game now, right? So they actually sort of believe it's each other. Hafner thinks it's them. They think it's Hafner. And Hafner's like, get in the goddamn truck. Get in the truck. But when he opens up the back seat, Zoe's body's laying there, which freaks him out because he's like, what the fuck? I didn't do that. They think it's him now. And he's like, no, it's not me. I thought it was you. No, it's you. So they're all freaking out. And then all of a sudden, Hook appears and kills Hafner like really ugly. Like he guts him and then he like picks him up and impales him on a forklift. I'm sure you've seen a forklift. So the forklift is in the up position and he picks him up and impales him on one of the spikes of the forklift. And I'm like, that's a good scene. And they showed it. Very graphic, And so I'm like, okay, that's good. A Oh, and Hafner, he had like shot 2 shotgun blasts into Hook before he got to him and then impaled him and stuff. So, none of this shit seems to be having an effect on Hook, right? Whoever this is, it's not showing you who it is. Like when Zoe got killed, it showed you her reaction to seeing his face, but it didn't show you his face. And her reaction was like, it wasn't really one of recognition. It was just like horror, So still, we still don't know who this motherfucker is, right? And so he impaled him on the forklift. Amber and Lance try to take his cruiser, and they run over him. They run over Hook. I mean, bad, nasty run over him. But he then stands right back up with his mask off. So his mask had came off. And it was Ben. At this moment, the movie had turned into a supernatural horror film. A supernatural slasher. Because it was none of them. It's Ben. Very good makeup, too. Because it's that guy. It's got the same 2 scars that was on his face. Only now that he had in the second movie. So it's got the scars in the right place, but now he's like a fucking zombie. He's like, rotten flesh and stuff. And you're like, no fucking way, man. I didn't expect this movie to turn into a supernatural slasher. So it's fucking, he's like, that's how come, well, that's to come yet. Hold on. So they get out when they see that, and they start screaming and crap like that. And Amber ends up, because remember, she's got that hook that Roger had. So she ends up hitting him in the hand when he gets a hold of her with that hook. And like this black blood stuff spewed out, and he faded away, like faded into darkness, like Serpent in the Rainbow or something. And so she starts kind of going, the shotgun didn't hurt him. Bullets don't hurt him. I ran his ass over and he stood right back up. The only thing that seems to hurt him is that hook. And I'm like, oh, okay. So it's not that would make sense in a supernatural sense. So it's Zombie Ben is what I put. He attacked him, but she sliced his arm and he fades. Amber doesn't want to run, though. She wants to go after him because she thinks now she thinks she's Sigourney Weaver and she's got a weapon. She thinks she's got something that can hurt this creature. Because now we all know that it's something else. It's not any of them. Yet you spent all that energy through this whole movie trying to figure out which one of these motherfuckers it was. And it was none of them. So I thought that gave me a little horror tickle. You know what I mean? So they start trying to like lead him. They come up with this plot to like drop an engine on him or something. And I'm like, well, that's not going to work. You ran over the motherfucker. But they got into the garage and he almost gets them again, but she ends up slicing his foot with the hook and he fades once again. They manage to get back outside and she starts trying to, she goes and gets in a big rig, a big, heavy machinery. It's a big giant wood chipper. So she gets in that and, gets it fired up. He's damn near killing Lance. He's gotten a hold of Lance. Right before he kills him, though, she that's when she cranked up that wood chipper. And when he heard that, he turns around and he runs and he like rips the door off of it and like grabs her and stuff like that. And after this nice big fight, my fan is blowing my notes. So after this big fight, she manages to get the upper hand and she like guts him with his own hook and then kicks him. Oh, she gets him in the head, right. She like gets the hook right through his head. And he's of course screaming and squealing, but before he can fade out, she pushes him, kicks him into that wood chipper. And you have zombie Ben meat everywhere. And the authorities come. They tell them that they don't know who it was, but that they are sure that it's over. We then see Amber like in the middle of the Nevada desert, and she's going to meet him. She's got him on the phone, and she has this big tire blowout. She pulls over to the side, she gets out, she looks at it, and she's like, yeah, I had a blowout. And then she's like, but wait a second, you know, it's like cut like all the way around, you know, and she's like, I don't see how you could hit something that would make that happen. And then, you know, he's trying to say, are you okay? And stuff like that. You need help. Can I come? You know, we send somebody. Where are you at? And it goes dead. And then she looks around and it's really creepy. And all of these big black clouds start moving in. And she's like, the camera is like circling her, right? And seeing different perspectives of her like looking around going, what the fuck's going on? And then it swings back around to the front of her. And Hook is standing behind her. And he screams. And she screams. And the movie goes. And you're like, well, not you're like, I'm like. So I'm like, you know what? I fucking like that movie. I like that movie a great deal, actually. So I loved the story. I loved how they were able to continue this. I loved the fake outs. I loved spending an hour and a half trying to figure out who the fuck it was, only for it to turn supernatural on my ass. I really liked that. I liked that. I loved the flash edit cinematography that the guy used. I love the whole way the movie looks. It looks very monotone to me. Very faded, very monotone. I don't know why. I can't really explain more than that. The movie, it just had very comfortable cinematography. I liked the way the movie looked. And I loved the flash edit style, like I said. There's not a lot, but there's enough to like, you know, like go, you know, I like that they incorporated a lot of flash edits into this movie. It works very well with the story. I love the fucking soundtrack. There is a lot of grunge metal, skate punk, and new metal. There's a really good new metal song in there on the soundtrack, a couple of them. So there's not a lot of teeny bop or dance or anything in this movie. It's a hardcore soundtrack, which I appreciated. Like I said, most of the songs in the soundtrack are grunge metal, skate punk, and the other one that I said, new metal. There's a couple new metal songs, a couple skate punk songs, or three or four skate punk songs, and then all the rest are like heavy metal grunge metal. So I really love the soundtrack. And yeah, I don't listen to the mob. I watched this movie and I end up fucking loving it. I really, really loved it. I gave it a 7 out of 10. I love this trilogy. And I really wish they would continue that. I don't know what, you know, I know what you did last summer. I still know what you did last summer. I'll always know what you did last summer. What's another word you could put there? for a sequel. I think I know what you did last summer. I mean, seriously, after this movie, I did sit for a while trying to figure out a name, a word that could go into a new title for a sequel. Because I would really, I mean, you know, it's what, fucking 13 years ago, so they've always got to follow the mob instead of giving us something. But I would really like a sequel. I really like this movie, and despite what you may think, I am not the only one. Does it have an attack of the ones, is what I call them? Yeah, but a lot of horror movies. There's not many horror movies I don't know that don't have an attack of the ones. An attack of the ones on International Movie Database or Letterboxd or whatever just means that. The 1 stars. 1 out of 10, 1 out of 10. Piece of shit, garbage, piece of shit. I'm so glad they stopped allowing, to leave a review on International Movie Database now. It's got to have at least 600 characters. I love that. No longer can you go to International Movie Database and leave a 1 out of 10. This is a piece of shit. Won't let you do it. You got to actually leave a review, baby. I don't know if that fucking Letterboxd, I don't know if it does that, because that place is attacked too by the trolls. But so does this have a bunch of 1 line, 1 out of 10 attacks? Yes. But it also has a great many 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, and 9s. Not from fake reviewers either. Because you can look at their profile and see. So I'm not alone in loving this movie. I'm just not in the majority. But if you like horror movies, you could really give this a chance. It is a standalone. It is connected, like I said, through the whole movie. There's so much that's different about it from the other, but it is in the same universe, and it connects at the end. I told you they also mention the first 2 movies in this. They do. It's a scene where they're at Zoe's, and I think her and Lance are talking, and she goes under the bed and she gets out this box and she opens it up, and she that's when he had told her that he knew that PJ had told him before they did it. He was like, how did y'all come up with this? She gets out this little box and said that, and she shows him the articles, the news articles of the first 2 movies. She's like, Zoe came up with this after reading about this crazy guy in this fishing town whose daughter was killed, and he murdered a bunch of people, and then he ended up tricking some of the survivors back to the Bahamas and tried and murdered a bunch of more people before he was killed. And that's how Zoe came up with the idea for that prank of that fisherman legend. So they, the events in the first 2 movies are mentioned in this. And of course, at the end, it connects when it turns into a supernatural slasher, because the killer is still Ben. And according to the way the movie ends, he's some kind of demonic spirit now. Because he got her at the end. So, what kind of demonic spirit would he be? One, sort of like Anya, a vengeance demon from like Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Anya was a vengeance demon. So maybe he's some kind of like vengeance demon, and he takes revenge on people who keep secrets when they've done naughty things. So he's some kind of vengeance demon now that takes revenge on people who conspire and do bad things and keep it a secret. That's how he finds you. He knows your secrets. So I really like that concept, You know, it took him from just a plain old slasher psycho to now some kind of demonic vengeance demon, which is what this movie did. It turned him into a demonic vengeance demon, who seeks out people who do bad things that get people killed and or kills them and keeps it a secret. I really like this movie. So yes, I'm a fanboy. I like all three of these movies. And if you don't, you can tell me why. Not that I'll give a shit, but I'll like seeing it. I'll like hearing your opinion. You know? I will enjoy hearing your negative opinion, even if you hate these movies. I just don't agree. I like this movie very, very much. And if you have not seen it, you should really give it a try. It's pretty damn good. And I will see you in the next video. Love you, miss you. Bye-bye. Always remember and never forget, you're a very special person, even if you are not a demonic demon in the guise of a lonely dead fisherman who now looks like a fucking zombie. And I'm talking the old school kind of zombie. Not the 28 days later zombie. He looks like the fucking Overlord, that type of zombie. That's what he looks like. Fucking Nazi zombie. Yeah. Love you, miss you, bye. See you in the next one. Y'all come back now, yeah.